He had him like he had everyone in there, me, everyone. In this, it was a jazz festival in Switzerland somewhere, Germany, and less than a minute, we're all in the palm of his hand. I'm like, what is this? He just has you, and he's charismatic. He sings great, but the charisma. I was like, what just happened to me? I'm in this guy's lap. He was incredible. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that. And all of us, us kind of leaned into him. It's amazing.
Now, I'm the type of person it's very hard for me to get a prop out of me, but I give props when they do. And in my world, where I've been and what I've seen, you are the real deal.
Oh, thank you.
And I tell you this because it's like most people do things a certain way. You did it backwards. And when I say backwards, I mean that, he's getting into comedy now. So I love him like a little brother. We've been working together for 7 years. I'll take a bullet for this guy. He knows I breathe. I break his balls, but he knows I breathe for him. He goes to the hospital. He needs a lung. If they take that lung with THC in it and whatever, and his body, it's his. So I try to keep him under my wing. I pamper him in a way. I don't want him to go through the pain I went through as a comic, which is wrong. He has to, I told him the other day, you got to go to Oklahoma. I want to see how Jews do in Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? Before a Jew can play in New York, you got to do fucking Oklahoma. If you can't do Oklahoma, then you got to keep going back to Oklahoma until you figure out how a Jew could play Oklahoma.
Was that Lenny Bruce? It was famous in Lima, Ohio.
Yeah. I told you, being a Jew in New York and LA is all right. Once you go deep, they'll come up to you and touch you. Like, man, we ain't never touched a Jewish person before. And you're like, so here you are, this kid, Haagen-Dazs, whatever the fuck, you're not doing drugs, you're working, Black Flag, audition, you're in front of these fucking punk rock people that the kids today have no idea. Like, they got to see Soundgarden and Pearl Jam with the Pit and jumping in there. That's funk day. But what you guys endured in the 70s and early 80s was brutality.
Much different.
Brutality. And I'd be a kid, and I couldn't wait for Martin the Fag. I would be by the basketball court, and Martin the Fag would catch the New York bus about 7:30, which meant he had to walk past 38th Street Park about 6. I wouldn't even go home to eat, just to ask Martin the Fag, what are you going to go see tonight? And he'd tell me Black Flag. He wouldn't say Black Flag. I'm just saying he would say, Hitler's dick. They all had weird names. Here I'm starting to, because I was such a Catholic that I wouldn't listen to white music, Led Zeppelin, and there were devil music. So I would listen to black music at the time. I would listen to a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and the Temptations and shit like that.
It's all good.
But something about punk rock fucked me up a little bit. Like, there was no video, there was no MTV, but just the fact that people were yelling, and so I would go to him, who are you going to see tonight? And he would tell me, I got to stop and get poppers at East West. That was the big record store in Union City. If you ever go to Union City, they had anybody who played the Garden, that's where you would buy the illegal shit. From the people who taped the concerts.
Oh, is it concert cassettes? The bootlegs.
The bootlegs.
Yeah.
You would buy them at East West. So like Bonzo's birthday party.
That's a great one. That's famous.
That's a famous one.
Yeah.
The
they
drummer
made that one over and over again.
The drummer from Led Zeppelin. And, I would ask him all these fucking questions. And yeah, he was gay, and it was tough being a gay man in 1975 and 6. Some weeks he'd have a black eye. Some weeks he'd have a missing tooth. There was always something with him, So here you are, young man, going in front of little audiences, and then you go in front of these fucking, they're gorillas, these people at these punk rock concerts, and you even said it, that you learned a lot when you went up in front of, there was a big difference between 350 people than 3,500 people. I think you got your balls lit on fire, they would pull your hair, you learned how to control an audience.
Yeah, there's no barricade at a lot of shows, and so people just can come right up and just hit you. Or on my legs, I have scars of cigarette and cigars that they would just put them into my legs. Some they would take their keys and try and stab you in delicate parts of your body. If you shaved my eyebrows, you'd see lots of scars. And
I see one here. Is that the one from Berlin?
This is from Brazil. I kneed myself in the head in Santos and broke my head open. But the one here, that's a boot. The one here, that's another Buddha got kicked in the mouth. I mean, ashtrays, cans, fists with rings. Someone just walk up and just like punch you in the face, and their friends would go, yeah. And you're like, I'm bleeding. And I didn't have the money to get stitched up, so I'd give like the clinic or whatever a fake name and just sit in there and get stitched up. And finally I had to stop bothering. So I got these crazy scars on my head from like things being thrown or people coming up and hitting you. And that was the first 5 years I did music with Black Flag. The audiences could be pretty hostile. And that was in America, Canada, Europe. They just, you'd get, some drunk guy, or, when you're young, we're old now, but when you're young, it's that ram at the base of the mountain in spring where the 20-year-old has to fight the other one. Like, I'm going to kick your ass after the show. Like, really? Am I back in school waiting for 3 p.m.? And like if I had $1 for every time a skinhead girl would come up to the van in the afternoon, we're in some parking lot of some bar we're playing, my boyfriend's going to beat you up after the show. I'm like, okay, thanks. And like that guy would materialize at least half of the time. And you're like, oh yeah, I heard about you. And you'd have to get into it and then load the gear out.
My introduction to you was really on Ari's podcast. That was really the first time I really sat down and listened to you, and I looked you up. And I've been in podcasts for 6 years, and I hate, there's a very hacky thing where people talk about hate online now. But when I looked you up, they were talking about you having a fight during the show, fighting the audience. And I get blown, like even hecklers are like, that's the top for me, like a heckler. I can't imagine during the middle of a show punching, like having to have a fist fight with an audience member.
It got so utilitarian. Like, okay, get through the chorus, got the chorus, there's a lead, bam, hit him and get back before the bridge. Because, you're going to have to pop this guy because he keeps swinging at your head. Like, okay, got to get through the verse. Otherwise, the guitar player will be, get a demerit or whatever. So it just became like, it's Tuesday evening, crack, back to the song where it just became part of your, because I don't have a stomach for that kind of thing. I'm really not looking to get in that situation because I'm not good at it. But by 85, you're like, another night, another boop, some guy. And it was all neutralizing and not starting anything. It's always like neutralizing the thing, or the guy waiting for you after the show. Like, I have to neutralize this guy because I still have to load the gear out. I still have to drive to Nebraska and sleep in a Denny's parking lot next to another smelly male, and we're all just drying off from the show. It was that life you live when you're 20-something, and you're kind of bomb-proof, and you can do it.
You still speak to anybody from Black Flag?
No, only through attorneys. It's
Jesus Christ.
It's the modern age.
We're going in like fucking Marines. You understand me?
Welcome to church, motherfucker.